All right. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon. So thank you so much. So we're back to the Moneymalist show. So whereby we're focusing on the essentials of managing your money and keep it as simple as possible so that everybody can understand, everybody can start without being burdened by all this information out there in social media and whatnot. Right. So today we have a very, very special guest, Dr. Joel here on my left. All right. So I don't want to waste more time. So all the mics to you, Dr. Joel. Just introduce yourself and what do you do?
Sure, thanks, Adam. My name is Joel Low. I'm a clinical psychologist and I'm also director at the Mind Psychological Services and Training. Lah. So, by and large, my work is a lot like what you see in movies and TV. Lah. You come in with some issues, we talk about it and see how we can help you out and get you back on your feet.
Wow, that's amazing. I mean, how long have you been doing this?
Good question. I think this should be my 11th year or 12th year doing this, I think. Around that,
Amazing.
yeah.
Do you do this out of passion? I mean, the first time you join it, is it your passion
Oh
to
yeah.
do
I've
this?
wanted to do this since I was 14 years old, right? So since then it's just been a journey lah, to get myself certified, qualified, to be able to practice and see clients. So it's been that since then.
All right. So, I mean, because I want to know what you do because, what's the situation like in Malaysia? Do people
Mhm.
like, I mean, how often do people see, I mean, psychology? Do they call you psychologist, right? They call,
Yeah.
yeah?
So I'm a clinical psychologist, and in Malaysia, the other two major professions that sees mental health disorders is counselors and psychiatrists lah. I think the situation in Malaysia is not too bad. I think it's getting better. I think if you wind back 10 years ago, I think it'll be a lot more slower lah, because people are still a bit more hesitant. But now I think people are much more calm about it, much more relaxed about seeing a therapist and things like that, right? So
Mhm.
they're quite happy to come in, especially the younger generations lah, the 20s, early 30s kind of generation. So they're actually quite happy to come in.
Okay, man. Amazing, amazing, amazing.
Mm.
So, what are the problems that usually they see you for? I mean, is it more like family problems or like
Mhm.
financial problems, or I mean, is it emotion just generally?
Yeah. Yeah. So I think by and large, lah, because as a clinical psychologist and my team are made up of counselors and clinical psychologists, we typically see the more the mental disorders that don't require hospitalization or medication, lah, right? Like schizophrenia, for example. So our bread and butter cases are things like stress at work, stress at home, depression, anxiety, difficulties with family members, couple issues, and things like that. Lah. Those tend to be our bread and butter cases, lah, right? In terms of other things like OCD, bipolar, we do see obviously with less frequency. Lah. And people do come in with financial issues as well. Lah. So in that
Mm.
case, we don't typically help them with the financial planning aspects of it because that's outside our realm of training. Lah. But more about planning the or managing the anxiety about money, getting money, for example, the concept of money and how it forms the identity and things like that. So we're quite happy to help them with that kind of issues as well.
Wow, amazing, amazing. Because in this world of financial, people see as managing money as something very technical. But I see
Mm.
managing money is more on focusing on the EQ. I mean, how we feel about money in the
Yeah,
first
yeah,
place. Because
yeah.
I mean, a lot of people out there, they have like this memories when they were small. They have
Mm.
sometimes they grow up like facing difficulties. So sometimes
Mm.
they hold like too close to the money. They don't even want to
Yeah, yep.
spend it. And
Mm, mm.
yeah, so that's why. Yeah, okay, right. Amazing, amazing. And like, do these cases over the last 10 years, is it more? I mean, is it increasing, or I mean, or related to the
Uh,
financials?
I think probably not so much, but I think the past 2 years definitely, like because of COVID, lockdowns, a lot of people have businesses have been impacted and things like that. So I think when that occurs, naturally people's anxiety lah, about money, about financial security, and all that has increased quite a bit lah. And I think
Mm.
it's fair lah because given the current financial climate, the fact that so many stores are impacted in malls and things like that, right? And because nowadays there's also quite a big chunk of people who are doing small to medium enterprises, like those kind of family businesses and things like that. They are the ones probably the most hit by these kind of situations, lah. And because they rely on it so much to take care of the family, then naturally
Mhm.
you do see the anxiety of about that situation definitely crop up a lot more in the past 2 years. Lah.
All right. Right, amazing. It's good to know. And by the way, thank you so much for being here today. I mean, we all,
No
I mean,
problem.
appreciate it so much. All right. So guys, there you have it. That's Dr. Joel for you guys. So I mean, he's on my left. I mean, I have to remember he's over here. All right. Because on the screen, I mean, you're right there. So
Yeah,
but I
yeah,
have to,
yeah. So
all
where's my
right.
right? Okay, that yeah, it's opposite.
Yeah. All right. All right. So yeah, basically when we practice minimalism, right? We want to get
Mm,
into. We don't want to get into the like too detailed stuff so that we're lost in the world of information. So we really
yeah,
want to
yeah.
know one thing. I mean, the first thing that I want to ask is that
Mm,
does how much does EQ plays a role in managing your financial situation? Because a lot of
yeah,
other
yeah.
people out there, seeing like managing finances, managing their investments, their risk and whatnot is like very technical stuff whereby you have to know
Mm,
the numbers.
yep.
But I mean, is it always we have to start with the right EQ before we rely on our IQ to make financial decisions?
I don't think it's a either or first lah. I think it's really a hand in hand kind of thing lah. Because obviously you do need the technical aspects to know how to do your investments and all that lah. But I think the EQ part of it, like, so EQ stands for emotional quotient. It's our be aware about own emotions and also to be able to master it as well. Because it's one thing to know that I'm anxious or distressed or scared or whatever, but it's another to be able to then master it and say, okay, in spite of it, I'm still going to do X, Y, Z, A, B, C. You know. So I think when we're dealing with something as crucial or as critical as money, lah, right? I think it's really important that we are able to have we need to have high EQ because we need to be able to understand where the anxiety is coming from. I think, like you said just now, like, some people hold money so closely to their hearts because maybe it's their identity or maybe it's their gauge lah, on how successful they are or how good they are as people, for example. That when it comes to investing, for example, naturally there's a lot more anxiety involved lah, because I don't want the uncertainty there lah. And I think when we start thinking or making decisions from our heart, lah, rather than from our heads or minds, right? I think what you're going to do is you're going to create a situation where you are going to second guess yourself. You're going to make bad decisions, emotional decisions. And those oftentimes aren't the best decisions in the world. Lah. I mean, there are time and place for that. Like, you're trying to, find a wife, find a husband, for example, go out dating.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, yeah, definitely go with your heart. Like, I think that one is a much better gauge. But for something as technical as finances and investment, then you need to go with your brain lah, more often than not. Lah.
Right. I mean, uh, because I see that society is looking too much into social media or
Mhm.
TikTok for financial advisors,
Right, right.
right? And sometimes they go on to Facebook. I mean, if they're met up with the right guy or right person, okay, I mean that's fine. But
Mm.
what we're seeing right now is on TikToks, on Twitters, and on Facebook, there's is like too many information
Yeah.
crowding their, and they are making emotional decision based on
Mm.
FOMO. Fear of missing out. I mean, I
Yeah,
want to
yeah.
invest in Bitcoin because I want to ride the trend. I want to
Right,
invest in
right.
Dogecoin and whatnot. So, so yeah. I mean, basically, how do we know like when to pause our emotion when
Mm.
making certain decisions?
Yeah.
Do you
I
I
think
mean because sorry, because
no, no.
emotions, right, we can't control when they come out. We
Yeah,
just have
yeah.
to manage our emotions. Is it true?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I mean,
Yeah.
our emotions are oftentimes very automatic, lah, right? And it's important. It's automatic because a lot of times we rely on emotions as a way to protect ourselves, like fear, for example. So that then therefore we don't go and do something silly or dangerous and things like that. Lah. So it is quite automatic sometimes.
I've heard about this because our brain has been developed for such a long time,
Mm.
whereby uh, we are always looking forward to protect ourselves because we
Yeah,
are coming
yeah,
from this age of dinosaurs and whatnot. So
yeah,
our
yeah,
brain
yeah, yeah.
have been this built-in defense mechanism whereby if we
Right.
feel unsafe in certain things,
Mm-hmm.
we tend to protect ourselves even more. But
Mm-hmm.
what
Mm-hmm.
I see in this financial age, I mean, why those things doesn't even kick in, even
Mm,
people are involving in scams. Is it
mm,
is it
mm,
like, is there a difference between a physical physical attack versus an a psychological attack, or
mm.
physical? I mean, is there a different? Because let's see, because in financial you can't see the scams,
Right,
but
right, right.
yeah. So is
Mm.
there a difference in our
Yeah.
reaction, or so? Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a really good question to ask, lah. So I think how it works is that our brains, our minds, lah, are tuned to detect threat, right? So obviously, like you said just now, like in the age of dinosaurs and cavemen and things like that, then the threat is obviously more physical, lah, right? So if we see a bear
Mhm.
running towards us or a tiger running towards us, then it's a very physical threat, and I need to be able to either run away or fight that thing that's threatening us, lah, right? But I think we
Mhm.
fast forward to 2021. Obviously, we don't see many bears or tigers anymore. We see them in the
Yeah.
zoo, but even then, so they're not very scary. They're quite sleepy most of the time, right? So what threatens us nowadays is like exactly like you said, Adam. It's more about the psychological threats, right? So loss of income, for example, loss of identity, loss of status, and things like that, lah. And even though it's not so immediately life threatening, right? I
Mhm.
think over time we've associated money with ability to take care of ourselves. So if I have a steady job, for example, I can feed my family, I can have a roof over my heads, and that's also a form of safety, lah, in that sense, lah. So whenever
Mhm.
we are put in a situation where we can either a increase our wealth, so that like people who are scam victims, for example, they want to increase their wealth, or we might lose our wealth like through bad investments and things like that. Our mind will naturally see that as a threat. So the kind of reactions that we get are actually not too different from what we would happen if we saw a tiger or a lion in the street somewhere, like, in that sense, lah. Our mind sees threat as just a threat. It's just something that would harm us, lah. And we may perceive that harm, our body reacts accordingly as well.
But why they still like, when they see a scam, I'm sure
Oh, right.
they know like 80, 85, or 90%, they know in their mind like I'm sure this is like a scam. But why is
Mm,
the
mm,
10% of hope and belief? I mean, they
mm.
have this 10% of hope, like, but this might help me in some way. I'm just gonna try it.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
mean, why does
yeah.
that even exist?
So I think that exists because naturally, like, I think human beings, by and large, or not all, but a lot of people are very optimistic by nature, lah, right? And I also think that given certain situations, we also want to have more, lah, right? Because there's also a natural human drive. We want to improve ourselves, get more resources, and things like that. Because again, like I said earlier on, we are tuned towards preservation. We are tuned towards doing things that will make us be able to survive longer, can breed and procreate, and all that kind of good stuff, like any good animal would do, lah, right? So I think
Mm.
when these scam things come about, right, I think what makes it so appealing is the fact that for not very much resources or effort, I can increase my wealth by 2 times, 3 times, 10 times, or whatever it is, and it's suddenly very appealing, lah. And I think these scam artists, they do their jobs very well, lah. They're very practiced
I
in the
like
field
that
of
scam
psychology.
artist.
Yeah, correct.
I mean,
And they
they're
are
even better than the financial planners themselves sometimes.
correct, correct, because they are artists. Because the way they sell their ideas, they sell their dreams, is actually very powerful and very tempting, lah, in that sense, lah, right?
It
and
is.
and as the
It is.
victims, when they hear these kind of stories, they're like, oh cool, let's go do it, because it's so safe, and I can increase my wealth, and it's very, the likelihood of them doing it is going to be higher and higher and higher, and therefore that's what happens, lah.
Yeah. I mean, I've involved in the world of trading for. Oh, sorry.
No
I've
worries.
involved in the world of trading for quite some time. People
mm,
basically, when they start to trade, they are very
mm,
aggressive,
mm.
right? But then after they incur losses, they become conservative traders.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
So yeah, I think it's about the same in this financial industry, whereby you see
mm,
an opportunity. The first time you do it, you get some, because all these scammers, right? They love to play with emotions. Let's
yeah,
say they
yeah,
give you like a 12-year plan. You put some money down, and then they give you like monthly returns. They
yeah.
build up your trust, and then
mm, mm.
they ask you for more money, and you put more money,
Correct.
and yeah, you're gonna
mm,
pretty
mm.
much lose them. So is there a way like for us to increase our like mental resilience towards this scams and yeah,
mm.
all this.
I think like the saying goes, like, if the deal looks too good to be true, then it is too good to be true, lah. And I think this kind of cliches exist for a reason, because it is true, lah, right? Very, very seldom would people give you such a large payout or such a large reward for not doing very much, lah. Unless they are parents or grandparents, lah, then yeah, lah, of course, lah, right? But that
Mhm.
aside, very rarely does it happen that way, lah, right? And this is something that is hard to it's easy to understand, it's easy to learn, but it's very hard to instill or very hard to maintain, because in the heat of the moment, like you said, these scam artists are very good at manipulating emotions and things like that. So very
Mhm.
naturally, whenever we get super excited or riled up, we don't think with our heads anymore. We think more with our hearts, because we
Mhm.
the uja uja, we excited, we want to go and do it, for example, right? So I think one really good way is for you to never make decisions when you're feeling emotional, either emotionally negative or emotionally positive. Oftentimes, like when we do that, we are going to be thinking with our hearts and not our mind, right? So whenever you get very excited about something like that, right, always keep in mind, okay, let's sleep on it, right? Take one night, rest over it, and then come back the next day
Okay.
thinking when you're fresh, lah, right? And that acts like a natural reset button almost for your emotions. So that when you take a nap,
Ah, I
you
love
wake up
that. I
next
love
day,
that.
then you can process it, right? And I think the second good example is to never make decisions alone, lah, right? So ideally, you have a partner in crime, like your spouse, for example, or a business partner, and that way you can have balanced views on it, lah. So it's not just you doing the decision and then you can't toy after that, lah.
Okay. Good, good. I was just gonna
Mm.
ask you, is there like a simple hack,
Mm.
to know when we are emotionally compromised?
Yeah, I
Can we know
think that.
that? Can we know that we are emotionally compromised? Because sometimes when we get too much into our emotion, like all
Mm,
this are gone.
yeah, I think it's a good question, but it's hard, lah. I think usually we will know after the fact, lah, right? After the event is done and said and done, then then we go back and think about it. Yeah, I was super excited. I wasn't thinking very straight, lah. I think in the moment it's harder, but you can train it, like you can practice it, lah. So the next time you feel like your heart's racing, for example, you are super excited about something, you're very pumped up. That's probably a good sign that you are emotionally aroused by something or another, lah. And that's a good time to take a step back, lah.
All right. I mean, I love what you say that we have to sleep on it because
Yeah, yeah,
basically when it's like a natural reset button. We wake up the next day and we feel like, I mean, what was I thinking yesterday? I mean, thank God
yeah.
I didn't make
Yep,
that
yep.
decision.
Yep. And you see as well, scam artists, what they would also do, they will say things like, oh, you need to decide by now, you need to decide within the next 2 hours or 3 hours or whatever it is, because this opportunity might go away or someone else might take it, right? And that's again playing into that whole, because you're excited emotionally, or you need to decide now. And that's part of that whole scam as well,
I mean, yeah, I've been scammed before. I mean, it
Oh,
was like 10 years ago. Yeah,
mhm,
I mean, I want to sell. I mean, it's not related to money. I mean, because I want to sell my things, right? It was an
yeah,
expensive headphones. I bought it for like 2,000 ringgit, something like that.
right,
So
right.
yeah, they said they wanted to buy my headphone, but he was in the army. So he said,
Mm.
I have to get it shipped as soon as possible because he's going back to the army. So
Mm,
uh
mm, mm,
yeah, I mean, I you know I I have like tendency to help people. Okay,
mm,
I easily feel emotional like towards, I mean, helping others
mm.
people. So I mean, what I thought was, I mean, this guy in the army, so he wants his things as soon
Yeah,
as
yeah, yeah.
possible. So let me ship it. And
Mm,
the thing is that he said he already, transferred the payment through PayPal. Then
mm.
then he did like a scam email
Screenshot, lah.
whereby the payment could not be processed if
Right.
I did not uploaded my parcel receipt. Means that I have to ship it first.
Right.
So yeah,
That
so
is
the
very
rest is
intricate.
history. So yeah, I shipped it, and I contacted the guys for the next 3 months. I mean, where's my money? Why
Mm.
why are you doing
Yeah,
this to
yeah,
me?
yeah, man.
But
Yeah,
of
yeah,
course,
yeah.
I mean, to
Yeah.
no avail, man. All right.
Yeah, I feel you, man. I feel you.
All right. Okay. So by the way, now we know that emotionally a lot of people is affected during the COVID, right? I mean,
Mm.
because lots of jobs and
Yeah.
I mean, and business is also affected and all.
Mm.
So what are the steps that they could do to regain themselves emotionally so that they don't
Mm.
do all these financial mistakes and stuff?
I think it's hard, lah. I think if it's situational, lah, meaning that it's something that has a very finite start and stop kind of a thing or timeline lah to it, lah, right?
Mhm.
Then I think it's much easier to manage the emotions because we know that there's an end date, lah, in that sense, lah, right? Like for example, if we quit our first job and we know that in 2 months' time I'm gonna have a second job, or my the next job is
Mhm.
going to start, for example, right? Then it's easier to plan because then I know, okay, I just need to tahan for 2 months, and then after that I'll be okay lah. I'll be back on my feet. I'll be stable again, which is
Mhm.
fantastic. But I think the problem with this COVID is that there is no certain end date. We just have no idea when it's going to end. I mean, what a year ago people were saying, okay, we did by this time this year everything will be okay, they settled already, but it's not.
Mhm.
Right? We're just continuing on and on and on. You see in other countries like Australia and the UK where numbers were going down and getting better, and now suddenly it's shooting up again, right? So is this level of uncertainty that makes people very up in arms? Understandably so, because there's no certain time or certainty when all of this is going to end, right? So I think as whimsical as this is gonna sound, lah, right? I think the best way to manage our emotions or anxiety is to really recognize or be comfortable with the fact that we just don't know, right? I think a lot of
Okay.
people are hoping and waiting for things to get better and then my life will continue. I think a lot of people still have that kind of mentality, lah, right? That I'll wait until things are
Mhm.
settled, then we'll go back to normal. Everything's gonna be okay again. But the more we think like that, the longer we're going to be sitting in our uncertainty and our uncomfortableness of being in this situation, that we get more and more anxious, more and more scared, lah, right? So instead of
Okay.
doing that, I think one thing we can do is to tell ourselves, like, you know what, this is the situation. This is the uncertainty of
Mhm.
it. I need to live with this. This is my new normal, basically. I need to be able to deal with
Okay.
this, right? And once you can make the decision, then suddenly things become a bit more relaxed a little bit, because then you say, okay,
Mhm.
this is what I need to deal with right now. Lah. And then you go into action mode rather than waiting mode. Lah. So that's one thing we can try and see. Lah.
All right. So, okay. When people have different types of way of they think about things, right?
Mhm.
So, is it safe to say that we have two types of people? Is it correct? I'm not sure. Okay.
Mm.
We have introverted people and extroverted people, right?
Yeah, yeah. Broadly
So
speaking. Mhm.
does introverted people like think better when they are with themselves, and extroverted people like they get information from their surroundings? Is it correct to say that?
Um, I think there are a few ways to look at it. Lah. So, by definition, introverted people are naturally people who feel more comfortable when they're either alone or with smaller groups of people. Extroverted
Hmm.
people are more comfortable in larger social situations, lah, right? So I mean, if you want to say about talking about making better decisions, then you're sort of kind of right, because when an introverted person is alone, for example, then they're not stressed out, or they don't have to focus so much energy and resources to dealing with all the other people around them. Lah. So I think one common misconception is that introverted people cannot be sociable. They can. It's not an issue at all. It's just that
I
they
am introverted people.
yeah,
Yeah,
right. So you know that when you're out with people or interacting with people, you're okay. It's not an issue, right? It's
yeah,
just that
yeah.
after a while, you need to recharge your batteries. Lah. So naturally speaking, if you are an introverted person, when you make a decision when you are alone or when there's less people involved, then you can spend more cognitive resources on making a decision, right? As opposed to you're in like a group of 50 people and you make a decision at that moment, it's really, really stressful, right? Same goes with someone who's extroverted as well. Like, chances are good that, he would use the group, use the people around him to help him make the decision, asking
Hmm.
questions, getting feedback, opinions, and things like that. As opposed to him being all alone, the extroverted person, right? What's going to happen then is that he's got his own thoughts and he's just swimming in his thoughts. He can't make the decision on his own. Then he's going to struggle. So maybe that's one example or one way in how introverts versus extroverts will make their decisions that way. Lah.
Okay, okay, good, good. All right. So, uh, do people already know that they are introverted or extroverted without like do some test or whatnot? do
Mm-hmm.
do people generally know? Because if they know, at least this
Yeah.
session could be like benefit, because they know if they
Mm.
are extroverted people, so they know, like, they have a little bit of structure of how to think about their current situation right now. And if they
Mm.
are extroverted, then at least they have, like, know what to look for.
Mm.
Does people
Yeah.
know naturally this tendency to become?
That's a really interesting question. I would say yes, lah. I think you yourself will know whether you feel more comfortable alone or when you're other people. Because there's some people who are extroverted, right? You put them alone in a room, they get really, I won't say anxious, lah, but they get very restless, lah. They just want to be around people, and that's when they thrive the best, lah. And again, with introverted people, you put them with large groups of people in a classroom, for example, they don't like it, right? They want to go back home and they want to recharge the batteries on their own, watching a movie, reading a book, or whatever it is. So I think by and large, I think most people would have some idea like whether they're more introverted or extroverted, I would think.
All right, good, great, great, great. Okay, I'm just trying to find a way that, how would people react to this external information differently,
Mm,
right?
mm,
Because yeah, as I said earlier, like, we have like lots of information, because people are taking advantages of this information of marketing, actually, because
yeah.
during this COVID times, a lot of this scam is even actually on ads.
On
They
the
are even
YouTube ads
using
and
ads.
Facebook ads, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
it sounds so cool. And to make money from home, you just put
Mm,
down like $50, then you can generate. I mean, there's a lot of things, right? So is it safe to say that if you're an introverted person, you
mm-hmm.
should collect the information and access the information on your own first, and then asking for information from your external surroundings. And if extroverted people, they should be looking for information outside first and see how they feel about it, and take the data back for them to think about it.
Hmm. I mean, I obviously haven't done the research on that, or heard of any research of doing that before, and that's actually a pretty interesting question, all right? Whether an introvert or extrovert would be do better in dealing with the kind of external sources of information that you're receiving, either through ads or through whatever. Actually, it's actually a pretty good, interesting question, right? My gut feeling tells me that there shouldn't be a difference, lah, right? So ultimately, whenever you make a decision, introverted or extroverted, lah, right, that you should make a decision based on the facts, right, and not emotionally, like what we talked about earlier on. My gut feeling also tells me that potentially an extroverted person would be able to filter out how do I say this politely? Okay, I want to say bull shit. I don't know whether I can say on
Okay.
this show or not, right? I think I can filter out all the scams, lah. I think, or the lies that people are doing a bit better, just because they're more attuned to social situations, they're more comfortable with social situations, so they can read the room and
Okay.
read the crowd a bit better. That's my
Mhm.
suspicion. I don't
Okay.
know, right? I could be wrong.
All right.
Versus someone who's introverted, then naturally their desire is to not be that put in that kind of situation, so they might suffer a little bit more. But again, this is my suspicion. I'm not entirely sure. But it's a very interesting question, actually. It's a good question to
All
ask.
right. All right. Thanks. Thanks. Okay. Simply ask, how can we stay? I don't know if okay to stay positive. I mean,
Mm,
stay. I don't know. I mean, how to stay happy during
mm,
these times? Is
right.
it possible to do that? Because I think we have like three general scenarios whereby we have these people are well off. I mean, their jobs are not affected. They still have
Mm,
their pay every month.
yep.
We have these people like 50-50. Maybe
Yep.
their pay got cut by
Cut.
50%, or their businesses got affected, and we have these people losing their job entirely. So
Mm,
is there a way? I think obviously this the first the first category. I mean, that will be still happy and do well,
mm,
and
mm,
this in the middle, and there's a third group. I think would be most impactful. So
mm,
how can this the second group stay happy? I just want to be
mm.
happy. I mean, we don't want like I'm not sure if staying positive is happy, because some people can't take that advice, because I mean I'm drowning now. I'm already like my
Yeah,
I
yeah,
mean the
yeah.
water is already on my neck. I mean I can't stay
Yeah,
positive.
yeah. Mm. I think you raised a very good point there, Adam. I think a lot of people, even before COVID, lah, to be fair, lah, right, there was this term that was coming about and was getting very popular back then, and now it's a lot more popular, lah. And that idea is the phrase, lah, is toxic positivity, lah, right? And this
Toxic
the idea
positive.
behind yeah, and the idea behind toxic positivity is when people try and force you to be happy, force you to be positive, right? So like when COVID first hit, people were saying things like, "Oh, if you didn't learn two languages, one extra skill, and learn how to do Photoshop, that means you wasted your time. Because we're locked down now, you got nothing to do. You should use your time more efficiently.
Mhm.
Now it's during lockdown. You should be if you haven't started your own business or you haven't pursued your dream, that means you wasted your time." So people were
Mhm.
like almost forcing you to be positive, and if you're not positive, that means you were failing or you're doing badly and things like that, lah, right? And I think that's a major issue because we cannot be positive all the time. It's just impossible, lah. There's no such thing as that, right? There are going to be times where we feel crap about it, right? And when we
We're not
always hear
zombies or
this,
robots.
exactly, right? And when we hear these messages like, "Oh, we have to do this, have to do that," it becomes very toxic, lah, because it's very overwhelming, lah, right? And I think this has a lot to do with the Facebook and Instagrams and the TikToks and the Snapchats of the world. Because if you think about it, right, when we use social media, 9 times out of 10 times the things that we post on social media are positive things. I graduate my degree, I get a promotion, I buy a new car, whatever it is, right? How often do we put things that are bad? I failed my exam, I got into a car accident, I lost the shoe or whatever it is, things like that. We rarely put it up, lah, in that sense. And I think because of how we use social media, we've developed a society where we only see the positive things, not all the bad things that happen behind the scenes, right? And because of
Mhm.
that, people always think that everything must be successful, everything must
The
be
grass is greener on the
positive.
other side.
Exactly. Then they don't realize that behind the scenes, right, it's so difficult, right?
There's
Like, for
so
example,
many weed.
Exactly, right? Like they say things like they say models on magazines and TV, oh, they look so gorgeous, look so pretty, it must be so easy, I just look pretty and I get a job. But that's nonsense, because the amount
Yeah.
of work they have to do to take care of themselves, work out, eat well and diet and things like that, it's very, very hard, right? So coming back to your question, Adam, about how the people who are impacted by COVID, how do they stay happy? I would probably say don't aim for happy, lah, right? Because happiness
Okay.
is an emotion, right? It's just something that you feel.
Okay.
And when we
Mm-hmm.
try and chase an emotion, it's very difficult because it's so hard to define what happy is, right? Like for example,
Okay.
today on a Sunday, happy for me would be maybe just having a Nestle ice cream to eat, a Milo ice cream to eat, and I'd be very happy, right? On Monday, maybe it's okay, I don't gonna scold my boss a happy ED, for example. And because
Okay.
there's so many variations to how someone can be happy, if we chase happy, it's gonna be very tiring, lah. So oftentimes with my
Oh.
clients, when I work with them, and we get this all the time as well, they come in and say, "I want to be happy," right? I ask them, "What does happy mean to you?" Right, and then
Wow.
it gets them
Okay.
down to
Okay.
that journey of finding out what actually is meaningful to them, like what their values, what their goals, and things like that.
Wow. Wow.
So I think with
Hey.
these impacted groups, lah, don't look for happy. I think that's a failed attempt, lah. It's just pointless, lah, in that sense, lah. Rather find things that are useful, beneficial, functional for you, things that can give you hope, lah, right? And if you become happy along the way, that's a bonus. I think that's what we should aim for, lah, in that sense, lah, right? And I
Whoa.
think when we
I
do
love
it
it.
that way
Okay.
instead, when we do it that way instead, right? So those people who are impacted, and naturally all of us are impacted in some way or form, lah, right? And when
Mm-hmm.
we're not chasing happy, we find what gives us hope, what gives us meaning, right? That will help us hold on better. That will help us stay on for longer as well, lah. So even though you're up to your neck, you're drowning, your funds are depleting and things like that, right? Look,
Uh-huh.
find out what gives you value, lah. Is it family? Is it your livelihood? Is it your ability to take care of people around you? If that's what you're doing, then focus on that, and eventually, hopefully, like happiness will come to you, like that. So,
Wow. Wow. Thanks. I mean, I love it. Don't chase emotion. Don't chase
yeah.
happiness, because we can't, I mean, how would say this? Even though we are managing our emotions, but we still
Mm.
have to look for the hard facts, right?
Yeah.
Wow. 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 I mean that's deep. I like that. Thanks. It's a very good point.
No
Very
problem.
good point.
No
And
problem.
yeah, because it's not just in trading, because I have to say this: in trading,
Mm.
97% people lost money, and it involves emotions. And I would say the
Mm.
people who really succeed is only two people who thinks
Mm.
in technical, I don't know, things with
Yep.
their left brain. I would say that.
Mm-hmm.
And the second is people who able to understand when certain emotions arises in their trading, then they would
Mm-hmm.
succeed as a trader. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
I was previously, like, I was, this is like years ago.
Yep.
I would say things like positive things to people, and I was like really idealist, like,
Mm-hmm.
everything
Mm-hmm.
can go good. I mean, everything
Right.
is going to get better at some point of the time. And
Right. Right.
sometimes it does work, right?
Yep.
And but now, I'm balancing out being an idealist
Good.
and a realist. so
Mm. Mm.
so basically, although we want things to get better, but still we have to look at the cold hard facts, like, where
Yeah.
are we
Yeah.
right now, where are we going, and what are we going to do about it?
Yeah. Yeah. There's this saying that I quite enjoy. We hope for the best, but we plan for the worst, lah. I think that gives us a very nice balance, right? Because we're still positive, we're hopeful, but what happens if the worst case scenario? Let's plan for that instead, and then just in case, lah. And at least that way we won't get
Mhm.
caught with unaware, lah, in that sense, lah.
Okay, so talking about toxic positivity, right? So
Mm.
can we say that this social media is not, I would say social media is, I would say 70 to 80% not healthy? Because I know, I mean, because when we join social media, we have all
Mm.
this good thoughts and feelings, because
Yep.
we want to follow
Yep.
our friends, and
Mm.
family, and our mentors and whatnot. But
Yep.
then when they post, I mean, they have no bad intentions of posting
Mm.
things like posting
Mm.
about
Mm.
cars or money and whatnot.
Yep.
But then that would not be, a good impact for people who doesn't have all those, necessary things, and or money or whatnot.
Mm.
Is it?
Mm.
I think it. is it good for people to like go offline?
Oh yeah, definitely. I think one thing, especially now, right, during lockdown, especially when nothing to do at home and things like that, I think people are spending more time online on their devices than before. Because last time, at least when we're driving to work, for example, for that 1 hour you're driving on the road, you can't use your Facebook, you can't use your Instagram, right? So we have time away from our social media, right? So
Okay.
definitely. So one thing we do encourage our clients to do is to take internet fast or device fasting. So that means for
Uh-huh.
like one day, every 2 hours a day, 3 hours a day, you just don't touch your phone. You do something like whatever, like read a book, do a hobby, play a game or something like that. I mean offline game, not computer game, right? Just so that you have time away from it and just have time with your own thoughts and you don't keep hunting or scrolling through Facebook or Instagram randomly in that sense, right? It can be very helpful
Yeah,
and good way to recharge yourself as well.
because it's addictive.
It
And
is, right? Both good and bad news is very addictive, yeah.
yeah, yeah, it is. I mean, even though we see that things that we don't like, we still spend our precious
Mhm.
time to see it.
Yeah. Correct.
And yeah, I mean, all these algorithms, they know what
Yeah,
we like, and they know
correct.
what we don't like. Then all this
Mm,
Facebook Shorts video, Facebook story, Instagram
yeah,
stories. I mean, you could like go on for
non-stop. Yeah.
for non-stop. My God. I mean,
Correct.
wow, wow, wow. Okay, don't chase happiness. I love that toxic
Mm,
positivity. Okay, okay. Wow. All right. So basically, we could say that in order to manage our emotions, we should not
mm,
get emotional about it, but get
mm.
factual.
Yeah,
Is it correct to say that?
yeah. So I think one. Okay, so I do something in my therapy lah. Right, in the work that I do something called CBT. It's called cognitive behavior therapy lah. And the premise of CBT is that our thoughts, our beliefs, will influence the way we see the world around us, lah, right? So
Okay.
the reason why I bring that up is because whenever we have an emotion, right, at least from a CBT
Mhm.
realm or CBT point of view, lah, emotions are symptomatic of the thoughts that we have, right? So, for
Okay.
example, getting a promotion more often than not, people will think that it's a good thing because, you have more money, you have more reputation, people look up to you and
Mhm.
things like that. But it can also be a bad thing, right? That means there's more responsibility on your back. If anything happens, it's your fault. You have more pressure, more hours at work, and things like that as well.
Mhm.
So same event, it's a promotion. Whether it's a
Mhm.
good thing or a bad thing, it depends on how we see the promotion lah, in that sense lah. So by that we're trying to say that the thoughts that we have is going to govern the emotions that we have.
Mhm.
If we reverse it, when we have an
Mhm.
emotion, that also tells us the kind of thoughts we're having, right? So when you're doing
Okay.
trading, for example, and suddenly you feel very, very scared or very, very excited, depending, right?
Uh-huh.
That's the
Uh-huh.
reason why you're feeling that way. And like you exactly said, instead of trying to figure out why I'm feeling that way, think about the situation, think about the facts, think about the thoughts that you're having. Why am I feeling so excited? Why am I feeling so scared? And when we can do that, we are then going to the realm, like you said, it's the more factual realm, the more tangible realm, things that I can control, manipulate, manage, and things like that. And then, therefore, in TLDR, lah, right? Long story short, we use our emotions as a guidepost. Lah. If we're feeling excited about something, there's a reason why. How come? Let's go find out. Is it because this guy is telling me a story that's too good to be true? Or is it
Mhm.
because it's actually a genuinely good deal and something I can benefit from, right? And also the other way around as well. Lah. So use those emotions as a signal about what's happening inside of you, and that will help you process the situation much, much better. Lah.
The emotions as a signpost.
Correct.
Wow. Wow. It means that as an indicator or something. Is it something like that? Yeah.
Yeah. So like sometimes if you they tell you give you a what call it a promotion or whatever this lah, and immediately you feel that oh this is such a good deal, is you're feeling really excited about it. Ask
Uh-huh.
yourself how come, is it genuinely a good deal or is it because he's telling me what I want, right?
Huh. Okay.
So that will then give you, again, I'm not saying you shouldn't be excited, it's not that, but then you
Okay.
understand why you're being excited, why you're being scared, and then they'll help you make better decisions from there.
Wow. Okay. Okay. All right. All right. Okay. Yeah, I mean, because previously, like when I don't know, I see like I'm a millennial and
Mm.
we're coming like into the next generation, like where happiness like is everything. I mean, we want to be happy at work. We want to be happy at home. We want to
Mm.
work where our passion is, right?
Mhm.
So does passion helps people to stay alive during these COVID times?
Hmm. I think it depends on what you mean by alive, lah, right? I think if you're talking about alive as in the physical, tangible meaning of being alive, like getting an income and being able to feed yourself, maybe,
Mhm.
maybe not, right? Because if your passion is something like travel, for example, then you're in trouble, lah, right? Cannot. But if your passion is to do things with your hands, like create stuff, I think a lot of people are getting into the whole what do you call it, hobbyist creator, hobbyist seller kind of thing.
Mhm.
So they make things and they sell like craft, very unique crafts kind of thing, or food, for example. So if your the passion is that, then yes, definitely can help you stay alive, lah, right? But another way to look at passion is also to keep you emotionally alive as well. Because it's
Mhm.
very, very easy for you in this current climate, current situation, to feel
Mhm.
completely hopeless and helpless. And I just give
Mhm.
up. I
Mhm.
don't know what to do anymore. I mean, I'm going to work, I'm coming back, I'm with my family and kids, but I don't feel anything. I just feel bleh. It's like I got no feeling. Right? And passion in this instance can definitely keep you alive because that will help you feel excited, that will give you something to look forward to, work towards, for example, and things like that, right? And how that
Okay.
passion is like for person to person can be different. Some people could be
Mhm.
family, some people could be getting a PhD, for example, some people could be, experimenting with something else, right? Like I've heard of a client once, he said, look, I can't go out of my house because it's so dangerous. I learned how to fly a drone, right? So then you could fly around the house and outside the house, for example, and I stay at home, right?
Mhm.
And that's a
Mhm.
passion point for him. So I think in that sense, lah, passion can keep you alive in that regard, definitely.
All right. All right. Nice. Nice. Okay. Last question.
Hmm.
How would we know that we are not emotionally compromised during these times?
Hmm.
We would like
Um.
maybe we would say that I'm fine, I'm okay, but
Hmm. Hmm.
sometimes I don't know, maybe like there's like some feeling. Some people say that they're fine, but they're actually not fine, and
Hmm.
they're
Hmm.
trying to lie to themselves that they're
Yep.
okay. And yeah, so how would we know that we are not emotionally compromised and the decisions that
Hmm.
we do is based on facts, and yeah, we do it to
Hmm.
the best of our abilities?
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's a really good question to ask, right? I think the first thing you need to do in this process, lah, is to first give yourself the permission to not be okay, lah, right? I think a lot of times, especially Asian, lah, right? I think like for you and I, not only are we Asian, we're Asian males, lah, right? Our society has taught us, our culture has taught us that we need to always be the pillar of the family. We need to be the strong
Mm-hmm,
one, the breadwinners,
mm-hmm,
take care of family, all that. And I think whenever we have that kind of role placed upon us, lah, it's
mm-hmm,
almost an unspoken rule that you cannot not be okay. You have to be okay because if you
mm-hmm,
crumble, means kata already. The whole family goes down in
mm-hmm.
flames, everything, right? So the first thing, and this, but to be fair, I can generalize this rule to anybody. I'm just using us as an example, lah, right?
Okay.
So when we start giving ourselves the permission to not be okay, right, to saying
Mm-hmm,
that if I need a break, I need a break. That is what it is, right? Once that happens, then it becomes much much easier for us to acknowledge that we are going through a rough time, we're going through a hard time, because I don't have to always be okay. I can be not okay, and then when I'm
okay.
not okay, then I can be more truthful and more honest to myself, like, that I am suffering, I'm going through a rough time, right?
Okay.
Another good way to detect it is also to listen, lah, right? Because sometimes the things that are happening to us, we also don't realize ourselves. It's our
Mm-hmm,
friends and members around us who will be the first one to let lah, right? So your husband might say that, hey, you're grumpy than usual. Your wife might say that you've been snapping at us, you've been shouting at us a bit more than normal, lah, in that sense, lah.
mm-hmm,
And if you're hearing things like that, that means the way you're behaving is outside the norm. You're changing the way you normally react to people. That's a pretty good
okay.
sign that emotionally you're compromised as well, lah. There's something bugging you, there's something irritating you, or making you frustrated or anxious, whatever it is, right? And you want to listen to that other people around you and use that as a guide, lah, right? Maybe they're right and something is wrong, or maybe they're wrong as well.
Mm-hmm,
Maybe it's going on, they are
mm-hmm,
going through
mm-hmm.
issues as well. But at least you can check and see, lah, what's going on, lah, right? And a
Okay.
third one, I think, is just to follow. I mean, how you're usually like, lah, right? So if you're usually normally a very high functioning person, you get all your job done on time. You
Mm-hmm,
always you support your friends when they're going through struggles and all that kind of good stuff. If all of a sudden that stops, if all of a sudden you stop being that person you used to be, and you realize that as well,
mm-hmm.
that's another pretty good indication that perhaps emotionally there's something bad's happening and you need to look into it, lah.
Okay. One last question. I just thought of this question, by
Yeah,
the
yeah,
way.
sure.
Is it possible for people to be emotionally blind? What I mean by emotionally blind is that uh they don't even realize that they have an emotional problem to begin with. So because
Mm.
most I understand what you're trying to say, like, sometimes we behave out of our norm, whereby
Mm.
maybe I'm a calm person, but then today I mean my
All
temper
over the place.
is this, or it's a so is
Yeah.
it possible to be, is it a good term? I know if there's a specific term for it, emotionally blind.
I mean, it's a pretty good, it's a good description of it, lah. Some people are unaware about their own emotions, so, and that can happen as well, lah, right? And I think that happens sometimes because either we're afraid of it because we don't want to recognize or don't want to acknowledge that we are feeling a certain thing, or B, we've just never been taught to, lah, and that's also quite normal as well, right? Like
Mm,
again, lah, Asian community, lah, right? You think about how many times you hear parents saying things like, "Hey, boys don't cry, boys shouldn't cry," things like that.
yeah,
And I
yeah,
think
wow.
we learn from those kind of lessons that I shouldn't be feeling this way. So whenever I am angry, whenever I am sad or scared, I don't know what it
Hmm.
is because no
Hmm.
one's ever taught me to think
Hmm.
otherwise or do otherwise, like, in that sense, lah. So I think your label is actually pretty good. You're emotionally blind because you don't even know what to look for, right? How do you find it, like, in that sense, lah?
So is that like a very is there a step? I'm not sure if this question is legit or not. Is there a step
Uh-huh.
for each and every one of us, like, to understand where our current emotional state is? Is there like,
Ah,
whereby
okay.
everybody can go these specific steps and they would understand this is what they're feeling right now?
Hmm. That's a good question, but very hard to answer because everyone's emotions or the reactions to things and the emotions from it is very different, lah, right? So, like for
Mhm,
example, some of us might see getting a promotion as the biggest thing in the world and fantastic. I'm damn happy. But some people's like, it's just part another day in
mhm,
the job, lah, in that sense, right?
mhm.
So I think to answer your question, Adam, I think the best way for us to know our emotions is to start keeping track, lah, from today, right?
Uh,
Ask yourself today, how do I feel? What are my emotions right now? And then slowly over time, what you will do is basically build your own ruler or your own thermometer, basically, of your emotions, lah. So then you can compare with yourself, which is the best gauge ever, lah, right? So sometimes the people come to us as therapists and say, "Oh, I don't know how I'm feeling. Let me know." I say, "I don't know because I'm not you, right? I don't know how you react to situations." You look at soldiers, for example. You put them in a
uh-huh.
war zone. People are dying, and they're like calm, relaxed. And you're like, what?
Yeah.
How are you calm? Everyone's freaking out. And again, it comes back to that. Like, everyone has their own personal gauge of emotions and how they react and feel about it. And the best way to do that is really to build your own scale, in that sense. So ask yourself from today, how do I feel today? How do I feel tomorrow? How do I feel last week? When something bad happened, right? And that way you have a much better idea of how you're doing at this time.
Okay. It's interesting now because I have an app on my phone that
Mm,
I have like a habit journal because I want to build new
nice,
habits and I want to keep track my habits, right.
nice.
And they added a new functionality of monitoring your mood. I was like,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
mean,
yeah.
why I have why I have to monitor my mood? But I mean, it's very good because you said this. We have to build our own emotional ruler. Can we use that
Mm,
emotional
mm,
gauge or ruler? Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Mm, yeah,
All
correct.
right, all right. Wow. Okay. So thanks again, Dr. Joel. I
No
mean,
problem. My pleasure.
it's been fun. I learned a lot actually. I learned a lot.
Glad to hear. Glad to hear.
Okay. So we could sum up this. I just want to do a quick summary of the session, and I want you
Sure.
to comment on it.
Mm,
So each and every day, although we're going through different types of situations and different type of information at sometimes, and whenever we go to social media and whatnot, we talk to our friends and family, and even our close friends and family, we
mm-hmm,
might feel burden of what we think we should be doing because of others asking us to do some things, or
mm,
I would say this dogma because we think success is having a car, a
yeah.
house, and lots of money, right? So I think that is one of the dogmas that up until now people are still sometimes they run towards that, but then they
Mm,
understand
mm,
like this is not what I want,
yeah, 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 yeah,
right? Yeah, I think to sum it up, just uh stay true to yourself
yeah,
and
yeah.
really understand what really would you want and
Mm,
what really, okay, people say like what really makes you happy, right?
mm, yep.
Okay, so but then we have this, not chasing for happy,
Mm, mm.
right? So
Because I
how would
think,
you? Yeah.
yeah, because I think we use that line, like, do what makes you happy, lah, right?
Mhm.
the key phrase is in that saying that do what makes you happy, right? It's not chase happiness, it's not look for happiness, it's do what makes you happy. So you keep doing something and happiness will come along the way lah, in that sense lah. I think a really good example of this would be parenting lah. For a lot of people they say,
Uh-huh.
oh, parenting is one of the happiest things I could do, which is true by and large. But when you have to wake up at 4 o'clock at night because your daughter or your son has pooped all over the bed and you have to clean it up, you're not going to be happy. Definitely not,
Of
right?
course, of course.
But when they wake up the next day and they give you a smile and they say, hello, daddy, good morning, daddy, and I love you, daddy, and it feels much better after that, right?
It is.
So
It
I
is.
think
Yeah.
in that phrase, do what makes you happy. It's not going to guarantee you happiness, but eventually along the way, something will make you happy, right?
Okay. It means that happy is not a destination; it's a process.
Yeah, yes, wonderfully, that's it. Wonderfully said. Nicely
Nice,
done.
nice, nice, nice. Wow. Okay. Thank you so much, Dr. Joel.
No problem. My pleasure.
We hope to have you back on the show.
Yeah, sure. Anytime. Let me know.
All right. So everyone, that is all from us for today. And I really, really hope you guys, take some pointers out and really, maybe after the show, you would take like a few minutes off and really think about how we surround ourselves. And, because for the past few months, or I think few months, I have been a lot of muting my social media
Social
feeds,
media
right?
feed. Yeah.
Yeah, whenever I like see a status that doesn't bring any value, it doesn't necessarily to be bad
Mm,
language or whatnot, but if it doesn't bring value to my life, then I would just silence it. I mean, not
yeah.
unfriend it lah, but
Yeah.
just silence silence it.
Yeah. For
That's all.
30
Yeah.
days or something. Yeah. Mm.
Yeah. So yeah, that's all from us for today. Thank you so much everyone for joining and for tuning in. By the
No
way,
worries.
if you want to see the previous show from the Moneymalist, you would go to the link down below. And if you want a free consultation, you would use the hold on. There's a code that you can use, okay, in the description then. Okay, it's not coming on screen now, but it's okay. You can go to the description and get a free advice from a licensed financial planner. And that's all from us for today. Okay, that's the link. All right, guys, thank you so much. I'll see you guys in the next episode of the Money List. Stay true to yourself and bye bye.
Thank you.